Right. So we'll start this meeting. So in morning session, we discuss up to the third workshop question. So we discussed about the if-else structure, jump statements, and then this about the subroutines. So at last, now we have come to this question. So we are going to use the knowledge that we learned in the morning session, that is on subroutines and jumps, in order to create a loop. So what is a loop? Loop is a repetition of statements. That means we have to execute the same set of statements until some termination condition is reached. Until some termination condition is reached, we have to repeat the same thing again and again, number of times. That is known as a loop, right? So what we are going to do in this question is, we are going to create using a subroutine. We are going to print hello, the word hello 10 times to the console output, right? We are going to print that one 10 times to the screen. So just go to Linux. I hope you can hear me and you can see the screen, okay? So just like previous, change the directory to desktop and copy the previous directory to a new directory known as workshop 3 part 4. Copy recursively. Part 3. Right. So we will modify this program again. You can either open this using gedit or using the graphical user interface. Whatever the method, it's okay. So we are going to create a loop. So this was the last program that we discussed. So I'll keep this exit subroutine and delete 2 subroutines. I delete 2 subroutines and I don't want this variable. So I don't have any uninitialized variable. I have only one initialized variable, that is hello, because my program asked me to print 10 times hello to the console using a loop. So a loop we are going to create using the knowledge of subroutines and jump. So change change this to hello, and we are going to call a subroutine known as, you can use any name you want, but I'll use print hello. So I'll rename this subroutine as print hello. And this one I don't want. Right. Okay, now we need to print same thing to the screen again and again. So implementation wise, we can implement this using the knowledge of subroutines. That means we have to go back to this initial position once we print this one time. So if you call this now, what will happen is this will be printed once. So we'll just assemble this one and see. So I need to change directory into this directory. And I'll call make. First you have to save this one. Then call make. Then it successfully compiled. So what happened? It printed hello once. It printed hello once. This new line character is missing. Okay, excuse me. So that's an interruption. So if you call make, okay, it printed hello once. So what I want from this program is, without writing 10 subroutines to print hello again and again, I want to print this hello from using the same subroutine by using jump statement. So we'll see how we can do it. So in high level programming languages, you might know that there are basically two types of loops, as for loops and while loops. So in those things, what is done? First, a loop counter variable is initialized. Then there is a termination condition. Termination condition, that is the condition which the loop terminates. That means loop will discontinue once that termination condition is met. And at the end of each loop, that means when the loop runs one time, the loop counter variable will be incremented by 1. So that is the logic behind a for or while loop. So both does the same internal implementation, same concept is there. So what is done? So what is done here is, first we'll define a loop counter variable. So in here we have to store that variable inside a register. So there are many options. You can go for a register. You can use any register you want, but I'll use the source index register. So if you can refer your NASM handout, you can see there is a register known as source index, destination index, stack pointer, base pointer. So identified by RSI, RBI, RSP, RBP. Likewise, there are set of registers. So inside general purpose registers, there are 8 registers. So under that, I'll use RSI, source index register. You can use any register you want other than these 4 registers. Never mind. So for demonstration, I'll use RSI register. that stores the loop counter variable. Loop counter variable. That means this stores. Okay, so this should be incremented each time this is loop. So you may have seen in for loops, the syntax is something like for I equals 0, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. So that is the thing inside brackets. So we are going to do a similar thing here. So like that, instead of I initialized to 0. Now we are going to initialize this register RSI. We are going to initialize to 0. Okay, so I have to restart this one because this mouse pointer went. Right, so in this one, the loop increment is set first to 0. Loop increment is first set to 0. And when this is executed, that means when the text is printed once, what I will do is, so there is a command to increment a given register by 1 and to decrement, that is to decrease a register by 1. So for increasing a value of register by 1, the corresponding command is hello. Oh, කටින් මේ participants ලා 24ක් ඉන්නවා. Okay, I think so there was internet connection failure. So we'll start again. So I'll share the screen again. Okay, so I think you can hear me and I have shared the screen and it is being recorded. Okay. So what I was describing was, so there are two commands or instructions in assembly to increase a given variable by one value. So that is increment, standing by INC letters, increment. So we are going to increment this loop variable or loop counter variable by value 1. Increase RSI by 1. Right? We do this and then we compare. So as we learned in morning lectures, we are going to compare this RSI value with, so in this program we are asked to, so I have uploaded this workshop into LMS, so you can see in here we are asked to print it 10 times to the screen. So I want to compare it with 10, value of RSI after increment with 10. So if it has not reached 10, so in the morning you understood about conditional jump statements. If it has not reached 10, so I'll use jump if less than, jump if lesser than to a given label. So I'll say loop, jump to loop. And where should I jump? Jump to the beginning of this one, but except this loop counter initialization point. Here we have initialized the loop count variable. So if we jump here, then it will again initialize so that it will never reach 10. So we have to jump just after this initialization statement, right? So we are going to jump to this point. We are going to jump into this point. So if it is less than, if it is less, jump to this label. So what will happen when this is called, print hello is called, it will come to this point, it will initialize RSI to 0, then print hello once and increment this RSI by 1 and compare this value with 10. So since it is less than 10, at this point RSI is 1, as it is less than, then it will go here and it will print to 10 times, until 10 times. Until 10 times it will be printed, and assume that now this after increment this is 10, so it will be comparing when this is 10, when this reaches 10, this jump statement will not be executed because this in this comparison operator, when this is 10, this is not less, so it will not go here but come to the next instruction. Next instruction is return. So when return is called, inside this subroutine, this will go to this place, and after that this subroutine will be called and the program will exit. So that is how I have made this loop to work. So you can even use other conditional jumps. So you can initialize this to 10, and you can decrement this always by 1 and compare with 0. That means this loop variables initialize to 10 and then decrement, and if it is greater, then loop, otherwise return. So you can implement the same thing in numerous ways. So this is how I have implemented. So you can try other ways also, but the output should be same. So we'll check whether this one works. So there is an error. 27. Okay. Maybe the increment operation, there are no arguments. Yeah, that's the one. So increment, it is always one. It does not contain any arguments. So what does this increment instruction does? Increase RSI by 1. So these things you have already learned in the morning session. Jump if less, return, this to the label, everything has been learned before. So what we are doing, we are going to jump to the same set of instructions again and again until this condition is not reached, satisfied. If it satisfies, if it is not satisfied, it will not jump but return from this one, then exit. Okay, it was made. So when I call execute, you can see hello was printed 10 times, I guess. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, 10 times. So this is the logic how you create a loop using jumps and subroutines. So do you have anything to clarify regarding loops, how this was implemented using the subroutine? Okay. So I guess there isn't any question. I hope you have understood this concept. So now we'll go for a different section. So you can see in here in subroutines, we cannot pass any argument. So what we do is we can call the subroutine by its name. Then what it will do, it will execute the set of statements until the return statement. But we cannot pass any arguments like higher level programming languages. In high level programming languages in C, for example, you have something known as functions. So you can call or create a function. In functions, you have a set of instructions inside a function, and also you can input some arguments. You can give some arguments or values to the function when it is called. But in subroutines, you cannot. So such a thing you can implement. So something like subroutines with arguments, something like that you can implement using the concept of macros. Using the concept of macros, you can implement uh, functions in high level languages like C. So you will understand when we do an example. So I'll describe it. So I have uploaded another set of exercises known as workshop 4, which will describe about macros. So in here, we are asked to modify the subroutine created in workshop 3 Q4. That means the last workshop as a macro which takes the text to be printed, its size and number of repetitions as the argument. So in the previous subroutine, in the previous example, uh, we only define what is the text to be printed. It is hello. Hello, print 10 times. So what if he wants to print another text, another number of times as given in the input? As we call it, we should be able to print the required text required number of times. So if we implement such a thing using subroutines, we'll have to create subroutines for each and every variable of that occurrence. That means if you want to print hello 5 times and hello 5 times and world 10 times, that means another word 10 times. For example, world, hello 5 times and world 10 times. So you have to create a subroutine for print hello 5 times. Then you have to create another subroutine to print world 5 times. So that is kind of a nuisance. That means repetitive coding will be there. The coding will be difficult to read and implement. So we have something known as macros. So if you can create a basic function and as the arguments, if we can pass the text to be printed and number of times with its size. So we can call it as we want. Just we have to call what is the text, what is its size, what is the number of times. So just like a high level programming language function, macros can be implemented. So that is the concept of macros. That is kind of an extension of subroutine which can pass arguments. So that is an extension of subroutine. So we'll see how we can extend the previous example to be done using a macro. So like previous, I recommend you to change the directory and copy the last workshop as workshop 4 part 1. copy the last workshop. And you have to copy my recursively. And copy it as workshop 4. Even though there are 2 questions, you can modify the same question as 2. We'll modify in the same directory. So if you want, you can use 2, doesn't matter, but I'll do it in 1 directory. Okay, then we have to change directory into this one. So I have opened the wrong. So what I want to do is so this is the previous program where we have a subroutine to print a given text, so that means this hello 10 times. So now I want to implement this as a macro. So what I will do is, so the macros are defined outside of text. So that is the first point that you should know. So if you consider subroutines, jumps, and everything, that is part of the main function. Means this text. The program begins here. Then execute, and these subroutines are part of this main text of this program. But macros are declared outside of text, data, and this BSS sections. So first point is macros are declared outside sections. Why they are declared outside sections? Because they don't belong to any of these categories. It is not an initialized data, it is not an uninitialized data, and it is not a text or valid instruction. So it should be defined outside and defined using the symbol %. % symbol stands for directive. % symbol is kind of a symbol that means it is directing the compiler to look into this. It is directing. That is the meaning of % symbol. So any macro begins with the keyword macro and terminate with the keyword end macro. Begins with the keyword macro and end with the end macro. And after the keyword macro, you have to pass the macro name. I'll pass the name of the macro as text printer, because in this macro we are going to print text to the screen. You are going to print text to the screen. So this is the keyword macro, then name of the macro, then the number of arguments inside the macro. So if the number of arguments is 0, that means there are no any arguments, you have to pass 0. If there is one argument, then 1. So in this one, in the question, we are asked to create a macro which has the text to be printed, size, and number of repetitions. So there are 3 arguments: number of repetitions, the size, and text. So there are 3 arguments. So we have to pass 3 macro. There are 3 arguments. So we'll just make and see whether there are compilation errors. No, that means the syntax is correct. You can check whether the syntax of your writing code is correct by immediately assembling it. If there are assembling errors, they will be displayed by the assembler. So the syntax is correct, right? Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to implement this one. So just cut and paste this one there, except the return statement, because in macros, like in subroutines, there are no return statements. Delete this one. And call in this subroutine also. Okay. So after that, what I will do is I will copy paste that one here. Okay, so we in this one also we need to create a loop again, but instead of 10, the user must give what is the number of repetitions. Instead of text label, user must give what is the string to be printed. Instead of size, the user must give. Okay, so for the places where we have arguments, we have to pass. So in this one, we have to print this whatever the string pass must be printed. So it will be passed as an argument. So in places where there are arguments, so you mention it as %mark. Okay, so this is first argument. This is first argument. Here we have the text to print. So I'll comment this out. %1 means place for first argument. So this is the first argument, and size is the second argument. So it is %2. So %2 is the second argument. Right, and at last we have to pass what is the number of repetitions that we expect. So it is %3. So in place where you have to place arguments, you have to mention it as, so this is an argument by using the %mark. Just like you declare a macro, inside macro, where you have percent mark indicates place of argument. Indicates place of the argument. So if you have, so when you call this one, you have to mention what are the three arguments. So the first argument will be copied here, second argument will be copied here, and the third argument will be copied here. But there is one more thing to consider here. The labels inside a macro. So for example, we have something known as loop here. We have something known as loop here. What happens in the main program? That means after this start, in the text section of the main program, if we have another label with the same name, if we have another label with the same name, and way of calling a macro is by its name, right? So I'll tell macro is called by its name. Right? So what is the name of the macro? Name of the macro is text printer. Text printer. And after that, after the macro is called by its name, arguments are passed in order. That means you mentioned this is the first argument, this is the second argument, this is the third argument when the macro is defined. So those arguments that you pass in order here will be copied when it is implemented. For example, the first argument is what is the text to be printed. So in the data section, we must have the text. So we have the text, it is text label 1. So the first argument is text label 1. Text label 1. And the second argument is what? It is the size. So we have initialized the size to size 1. Size 1. And the third argument is the number of times. The number of times for this one to repeat. I'll say 5. I'll say 5. Right. So this is the name of the macro. Then these are the three arguments. When this macro is called. So each and every time this macro is called, you can pass different arguments to this macro, just like a high-level programming language, a function, its name, and then arguments are inserted in order. So we'll see whether this one compiles properly. So I hope this is not compiled properly. Why? So when this macro is called, what will happen is, so add a colon here to make it a label. When this macro is called, what will happen is this macro will be implementing. So what it has a label known as loop. But also in the main program also you have a label known as loop. So when this is executing at this conditional jump statement, there is an ambiguity. Ambiguity means uncertainty. Uncertainty to which label it should jump, either to the loop label inside the macro or to the loop in this text section. In this text section. So what it will do? So for that one, there is an ambiguity. So it should give some errors. So if we call make, yes, definitely you get label loop inconsistently redefined. So there is a redefinition of loop here, because in inside the macro also there is a loop. So what we need to do is we need to make this label local to the macro. So what do you mean by local? Local means this variable, this loop variable must exist only inside this macro. So in programming languages, you might have come across something known as local and global. If it is local, it is only available inside a particular domain. If it is global, it is available outside of a given domain. If it is global, not only in the scope where it was defined. So to make this local, we have to add 2% symbols. 2% symbols will make a variable local inside where it is defined. For example, in this macro, if you add 2% marks, percentage marks in front of this label, 2 percentage marks will make this label local only to this macro. So when you call this macro inside the main program, so when this is run, when it comes to this conditional jump statements and loops for the label known as loop, then it will definitely loop only inside this macro, because you have specified that it as local variable. So outside of this macro, that means outside means inside this text, so not within this macro. So this variable label will not be considered, because we have specifically asked it to look for the local variable. So not only that one, we have to declare 2 percentage marks here also. So what does double percentage mark does is makes the label having local scope. This will make this loop to have, this label to have local scope. So there is no ambiguity between this label and this label. So we'll make. So now okay, there is no assembling error. So here I call this one. So if my program is correct, I should get hello 5 times. Yes, it was successfully executed. I got hello 5 times. So if I want to get hello 3 times, I just have to call it, only change the argument value. I don't have to change any implementation of this macro. I don't have to change the macro at all. I only have to change the argument only. I only have to change the argument only. I don't ever need to change anything. So you have to make. So call hello 3 times. So this simple as that. So you can extend a subroutine into macro. So subroutine can be considered as a macro with 0 arguments. When a particular macro is having 0 arguments, then it will automatically become a subroutine, because at the end of this macro also, the next instruction will be executed, right? So it is like going from here to this one and coming back, just like a subroutine. So by default, when the number of arguments is 0, it will become a subroutine. Right. So with this one, so if you want to print another text, you need not to create another subroutine. Just you can use the same macro again. So for example, if I define another text, I'll use this one as text label 2 and this one as world, this one as size 2 and text label 2. And if I want to call this one again, just after this one, I want to print hello 3 times and world 5 times. Let's take. So what I have to do is, I just want to call this macro again. If it was a subroutine, I'll have to create an additional subroutine for this task, a separate subroutine for this task. That is time consuming and a wastage. So I just have to call the macro with different arguments. So what are the arguments? Text label 2, size 2 and 5. If you go and make and run, you can see hello has been printed 3 times and world has been printed 5 times. So that is the advantage of using macros. It is just like a normal function in high-level programming language. That is a kind of a text substitution, but with arguments. So subroutine is a text substitution mechanism, but without arguments. So macro is an extension. So for the places where you have you do define local variables, you use it with double percentage marks. For the places you have arguments, you have to use single percentage mark. When you define macro, percentage. When you end macro, percentage. This is macro name, and this is number of arguments. I hope this is clear to you. So I just called the same macro again with different arguments to show how easily you can use a macro even in a low level programming language like assembly. By using macros, you can make the programming in assembly languages also more easier. You can define a macro and do all the low level instructions inside that one, and inside the main text you just have to call the macro just like a library, high level library. You can call it. So in fact, in the second question, if you can see, in the second question, we are asked to save the macro separately as this kind of a file and include it in our assembly file. So in high-level programming languages, you might have seen where in the main program you can call out another set of instructions inside that one. So macro is similar. So even here, macro is not declared as a part of the main program. So where is macro? Macro is completely outside of the program. Macro is completely outside. It is not in data. It is not in uninitialized data. It is not in instruction. So it is completely declared outside. So if it is outside, so you can keep it even outside and just include a reference to that outside file. So in programming languages, these things are always most of the time done. Many functions in high level languages are in separate files. So those functions are defined in separate files. When a programmer is writing a program language, what it is doing is it will call those functions from those defined libraries or files. So we'll do a similar thing here. So we'll first you have to create a file known as repeat.inc in the same directory. So we can do it using the terminal. So if you go inside this directory workshop 4, you have the usual files: the assembly file, executable file, list file, make file, and object file. So we are going to create a new file. So how to create a new file? In the first workshop, I explained it's in the touch, or even you can use cat touch or cat command. I'll use touch repeat.inc. So files that are included in the programming assembly program, you have to save it in the format inc, including files that are included, inc files. So now there is so there was a connection problem. So I'll start again. So what I did was I created a new file known as repeat.inc. How did I create it? I use the simple touch command, touch repeat.inc. The things which are included, which are to be included in an assembly file is stored as inc or including file format. So this is the including file format. So I'm going to create such a file and I'm going to open that file using the editor. Using the editor, I'm going to open it. So what I want to include in this file is nothing but my whole macro. So what you can do is just cut paste this macro there, the whole definition of the macro. Cut, Control X, Control V. So then the macro is existing as a separate file. So you need not to declare it inside the main program. What you can do is just call it here. How to call a macro? Macro or any other external file. External file is called using the keyword include. Include the name of the file. You have to specify inside double quotes. Name of the file, specify inside double quotes What is the name of the file? Repeat.inc. That is the file to be included. So what it will do when you include, that means whole text inside that repeat.inc or whatever the file that you call will be copied here. It is the same program. It is the same program that we wrote earlier. Nothing different, but in another approach to visualize this code efficiently. That means for easy visualization, rather than copying, having this whole code here. What I did was I took it to another separate file known as repeat.inc and added a reference to that one here so that it will be copied here. So when it is called, so this text printer macro is inside this file, so it has already been included. So it can be called. But if you haven't included this, then you will get a runtime error because this macro is not defined. So we'll see whether this one works. Right, it seems that it is okay. We'll see whether it works. This we'll change something and see. Okay, no problem. So the same thing. This is the professional way of including a macro. That means include it as a reference or using the keyword include by defining the macro in another file with this format, right? So that is the end of workshop 4 and also the explanation regarding today's meeting also. So next week we'll start a new section and do you have any questions regarding macros or regarding that loop, implementation of that loop? Right, so it seems that you don't have any questions. So we'll meet next week, 6:30, same time, right? So I'll end this meeting. So I'll upload this video today.